I always got to check the clock and make sure that it's recording before I start talking. Lesson learned. Even though before I record, it flashes the big 3, 2, 1. Still throws me off. Hey, we're on the last chapter. Yay! It's the endocrine chapter. And it's just a lot of little details. And we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to drag ourselves to the end and do it. I actually have been waiting for this moment to be talking about the last chapter and dreading it because I'm as burned out as you guys are. It's been a difficult semester for everybody. We're all a little broken. I know that. I'm sorry. I did my best. I really did. These are always like this. The beginning of the chapter is always my little confessions, I guess, for those that watch this. So I thank you for hanging in there, for doing your best. I thank you. I did my best. It wasn't always pretty. If you give it your best, I'm sure it wasn't always pretty also, although a few people I think are keeping it rather pretty, and I'm very impressed by them. So I miss you guys. I miss seeing you in person, and I'm like a vampire. I usually suck off your guys' energy. So when I just look at myself and I look at my really tired eyeballs with no makeup, and like, who wants to watch that? And I'm trying not to itch my nose, and it's really itchy. So we have this chapter, and it's the endocrine system, and we're going to do it. I'm actually prepared because when it gets near the end and I've got to do something that hurts, it hurts. I want to be done just like you. I sit down at the kitchen table and I force myself to take notes on a chapter I've been lecturing on for over 11 years. See, I even have the cup to prove it. Cobleskill 10 years. This is what they give you for working at Cobleskill for 10 years. You get a travel mug. It's actually a really good one, so I'm really actually not complaining because I use it all the time, and it's insulated and it keeps things really hot, and it's a huge volume, so I might be joking about it, but I'm actually very grateful for it. So like I said, I force myself to do it right now. I want to sit on the couch. It's got a blanket. It's waiting for me over there. There's a couch. I think you can see it. Yeah. And I want to sit in front of that TV and watch movies so bad. But I'm going to do this. That's last Sunday. I had to do it, guys. Sorry. And you guys are counting on having these videos available so that you can do the chapter. So, like my unfinished doorway behind me with the insulation sticking out. And 10 years from now, ask me, hey, did you ever get that door trimmed out? And I'm sure the answer is going to be no. But that's my world, man. Unfinished projects. So we are talking about the endocrine system. And I know I'm still on camera. I still just itch my nose. What is it about you guys that makes my nose itch? I don't know. Must be love. Must be love. Can't think of a song with that. All right, so what is the endocrine system? How about I tell the computer I want to do it? The endocrine system sends out hormones, and hormones are chemical messengers that travel in the blood. They're made in one place, and they act on a different place, so they get transported via the blood to their target organs. And we're going to talk about target organs, target cells. So they're fixing problems usually. We have feedback systems, which is why I had to run all the way to college to get this nifty pen so I can draw all over some feedback mechanism. And like the nervous system, right? The nervous system controls things. The endocrine system controls things. So together, they work together to coordinate the body systems. But the nervous system is very fast. Oh, look, here's a little table. So they both kind of control, right? Comparison of control by these two. So I just got new glasses last weekend, and I have a pretty hefty prescription. If you were in the eye dissection, you saw that. I'm distracted because I think my little kitty cat wants to come in. All right. So I'm trying to get used to them. So if you see me like, ooh, what's going on? I'm just struggling a little with my new prescription. Okay, I gotta pause. I gotta let my cat in because it's very windy and like 35 outside. Okay, I'm back. He didn't come in. He's a little stinker, but whatever. All right, so the nervous system uses neurotransmitter, hey, and is local, right? Released locally, neurotransmitter going from one cell to another or from one cell to the adrenal medulla, right? The site of action is very close to where that neurotransmitter is released and binds to receptors. My target is smooth muscle, cardiac muscle, skeletal muscle, glands, or other neurons, and I'm super duper fast. And my duration is super short. So with the endocrine system, I have hormones delivered throughout the body by the blood, and action is usually not near where it's being released, but I still have receptors. All the cells throughout the body have receptors to respond to hormones. It's a little slower, seconds to hours to days, but my duration is a lot longer than the nervous system. So together they kind of complement each other. They do different functions, but they work together, right? You need them both. So you have two types of glands in your body, and I know this chapter's on the endocrine gland, but we already talked about exocrine glands. Exocrine glands make a product, just like endocrine glands make a product, but exocrine glands release them into ducts. I don't know why it doesn't say that. Release into enclosed pathways called ducts. We have salivary ducts, sweat glands with sweat ducts, oil glands go into the hair follicle, digestive glands go down like a gutter, a certain pathway. Endocrine glands make hormones, and I say they release them into the blood. What happens is they release them outside the cell into the interstitial space, and then that eventually gets into the bloodstream. And once I'm in the bloodstream, I'm on the highway and go everywhere, and I'll eventually bump into my target cell. Now, a target cell is a target cell because it has a receptor for the hormone. That's what makes it a target. Oops. If you don't have a receptor, you're not going to be a target for it. It's action. Do I have a picture of all the different places? Okay. So there's endocrine glands that makes hormones all over your body. That's what this is saying. In the brain, so this is in the brain right here. We had the pineal gland making melatonin. We have the hypothalamus. We're going to talk about that. It's a major player in terms of making endocrine hormones. And we have the pituitary gland, and we saw that hanging off the brain. We have the thyroid gland in your upper neck, and behind the thyroid gland is the parathyroid, those little green dots there. Down below, just sitting on the heart, is the thymus. That makes some hormones. We have the actual heart makes a hormone. We'll talk about that next semester. The stomach makes local hormones. Those are called paracrines. The kidneys make hormone. We'll talk about that next semester. Your skin makes a hormone? That I don't know about. I guess so. I never didn't know that one. The liver makes hormones that work together with the kidney for managing blood pressure. Your adrenal glands make hormones, a lot of different types of hormones for these little crazy things that sit on top of the kidneys. The pancreas, which is retroperitoneal behind the stomach, makes hormones. And so the pancreas, let's talk about the pancreas because I think that's the scariest organ in the body, is both an endocrine gland because it makes hormones. It makes insulin and glucagon. Those are hormones. But it's also an exocrine gland because the pancreas makes all digestive enzymes to digest your food. So, shucks. That's the pancreas. And the small intestine makes local hormones. And then you have the ovary and the testes making reproductive hormones like testosterone and estrogen. Okay, whoops. So we're doing good for time. I'm just trying to see where I am in my notes. Okay, so when hormones are traveling throughout the body, you have to have a receptor in order to see that message. And this is interesting because I didn't really notice this before, but receptors are constantly being made and put on in the cells, whether in the cell or on the cell surface. I'll get to that in a minute. And so receptors kind of are played around with a little bit. And receptors might be reduced in number. That's called, where's my pen here? That's called downregulated. So where they are reduced in number and quantity. And, or some hormones might make them become more sensitive and be upregulated, meaning increase in quantity. If you have more receptors, just like when we were doing the general sensation, if you have more nerves, you have greater sensitivity for touch. If you have more receptors, you're going to be more, you are more sensitive to responding to that hormone, right? That should make sense. Now, you're like, this is all well and good, but give me something to chew on. So here's what happens in the body if people have a lot of adipose tissue. So adipose is fat, right? Adipose tissue makes leptin. Now, I'm kind of giving you a slightly off story, but it's pretty close enough. So I'm making you dangerous, giving you a little bit of knowledge. So, all right, adipose makes leptin. Leptin, a lot of leptin will downregulate insulin receptors. So what does that mean? That means that those cells will be less receptive, less responsive when insulin is present. So that turns into type 2 diabetes. These individuals make insulin, but the cells don't listen to it. They don't see it. And they don't see it because of the adipose tissue making this leptin. So when they lose weight, they lose that type 2 diabetes, and then their cells go back to being normal response to insulin. So that's type 2. Type 1 is different, but type 2, leptin downregulates insulin receptors, and that's what's happening with those folk. The little kitty that's running outside in this crazy weather is probably wanting to come in, so I'm going to pause again and see if I can get him in the house. Sorry about that, guys. All right, I got him in, so I'm back on track here. Okay, so that's what the deal is with upregulation or downregulation. If I'm losing receptors on my cell surface, I'm not going to see that hormone. I'm not going to respond to it as much. That's downregulation. Oops, and upregulation we already talked about. Oh, I think this picture just kind of speaks for itself. I have an endocrine gland making hormone going in the blood to a different location, and these receptors binding to it in a different spot. Okay, so hormones, we say they travel. They can travel far, but not all hormones travel far. Some hormones will just respond to the cell next to them, so they're local. And the local are called paracrine, because they don't need to get in the blood, but they elicit a response from a different target cell. And autocrine is when this cell makes its own hormone and it acts upon itself. I mean, I don't know. Is that like when you hit yourself? I don't know. Autocrines are just kind of silly, but I'm sure they serve a purpose. We're not going to be talking about that. So I have two different types of hormones. I'm so itchy today. Sorry. I have hormones that are lipid soluble, and I have hormones that are water soluble. So where's my little pen? I can either be lipid soluble, and lipid soluble means they have some sort of cholesterol base in them, and that's my steroid hormones, thyroid hormone, nitric oxide. Water-soluble hormones are protein-based. So I have amine hormones, peptide hormones, protein hormones. Those are all protein amino acid based, and then these eicosanoid hormones. And I know those are local hormones, like prostaglandins, we're not talking about. So, here's structures of my lipid. Steroid hormones are based on cholesterol. It gives you a whole list of the different ones. I'm not going to read them to you. Thyroid hormones coming off of the thyroid. Nitric oxide is off blood vessels. Water soluble. The majority of your hormones are water soluble, meaning they like water. They're okay with water, but, well, like we'll see, they, hold on, okay. They don't, they're too big to enter into a cell. So when we're talking about hormones, we're going to go back. This slide should really be in a different location. This is saying, hey, what does a hormone even do? So irregardless of whether a hormone is lipid soluble or water soluble, why do I need hormones? Well, hormones tell cells to make things. Hormones cause cells to be more permeable to messages. Hormones will tell the cells to transport things out of the cell, substance in or out. Hormones, this is a big one, alter the metabolic rate. Hormones can cause contractions. We'll see that next semester. So that's what hormones do. It's just kind of a general list. If you're a lipid-soluble hormone, now this is kind of scary. If you're a lipid-soluble hormone, one, you don't like water, right? So you blob onto a protein. And so that makes you invisible. That makes the kidneys keep you and not dump you off in urine. And that makes you be more portable, okay? So you bond onto a transport protein, and when you get where you need to go, you jump off, right? It's like the T. And lipid-soluble hormones are small. They go right through the plasma membrane. They go right into the nucleus, and they go right to the DNA. Alters gene expression. There's nothing stopping them. Their receptors are right on the DNA, and the DNA is activated and makes their protein. What does this mean? This means if you're jacking your body up with steroids, the more you take, the more you will see increased, quantity, increased usage will be increased results. Now, there's side effects to steroids, so I'm not recommending to take it. There's nothing in the cell to stop it. Nothing, no gatekeeper. Yowza. If I am a water-soluble hormone, I'm too big and clunky, I'm charged, and I am able to be transported, no problem, right? In the blood, can be transported on my own. I'm a big girl. But I bind to a hormone that's on the outside. I bind to a receptor. I bind to a receptor that's on the outside of the cell. Do I have a direct path into the nucleus and do my stuff? No, not at all. I bind to a receptor outside the cell, which causes a chain reaction. All of this stuff is just a chain reaction to get my desired result. Is there stopping me? Oh yeah, they're stopping me. If I don't have any receptors on the cell, or I've been down-regulated, not going to be as productive. So it's just, big, long chain reaction. We're not going into specifics. Your book goes on and on about this, but it's just not important. So how a target cell will respond to that hormone, one, depends on how much hormone is present, how many receptors are on the target cell, and are there other hormones that are messing with me? And we've already talked about the fact that leptin messes with insulin. So if hormones are working together, it's a synergistic effect. We have good synergy. We work together well. But if they're opposing, like the leptin insulin, then leptin is antagonistic. They're opposing the action of the other guy. But these three things, which seem like a quick little statement, is critical. How a target cell is going to respond, how much hormone I'm making, how many receptors I have on the target cells, and are there other hormones messing with me? So that's a totally different concept than why is a hormone being secreted. So we have this slide is how a target cell responds to a hormone. So the hormone's made, and this is saying why is hormone being made? It's being made because, one, signals from the nervous system is telling it to. Two, chemical changes in the blood are stimulating its release. And three, other hormones are telling it to be made. And I'm pretty sure, oh, no, I thought I had a slide that talked about each one of these. So I could have a nervous system, and this is like the sympathetic nervous system talking to the adrenal medulla, right? The nervous system is sending a neuron right to the adrenal medulla, and the adrenal medulla is releasing epinephrine into the blood. But so this hormone is being made, epinephrine is the hormone, because the sympathetic nervous system stimulated it too. Now we saw chemical changes in the blood. We saw calcium levels, right? If calcium levels were low in the blood, that stimulated the parathyroid gland. And we're going to talk about this again later. I'm just giving you examples. Parathyroid gland to make parathyroid hormone. And then that's my hormone. And that hormone is being produced in response to low ion levels of calcium in the blood. So chemical change. The other one we have like the pituitary gland. This is the most common one. Pituitary gland will release a hormone, which will then go to the thyroid gland. And the thyroid gland will release his hormone, thyroid hormone. All right, so this is where one hormone, the hormone from the pituitary gland, it's called thyroid stimulating hormone. Come on, you. You know what I'm trying to say. My pen is just being very bad. So that hormone is telling a different gland to make a different hormone. So that's the other hormone aspect. Hey, Bubba. He's not happy with me because I made him come in because the weather is turning. Okay, so once these hormones are released, most of them are controlled, regulated via a negative feedback process. We've talked about this a little bit. Remember, negative feedback just fixes a problem. I have a stimulus, something. All right, so let's look at this. So I've disrupted homeostasis by decreasing glucocorticoid levels in the blood. A glucocorticoid is cortisol. Right? I get my corticoids mixed up. Where are you, Mr. Adrenal Gland? Yep. Okay. Cortisol is a hormone we're going to talk about later. Don't worry about it. When my cortisol levels are low, that is being detected in the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus releases a hormone that then talks to the anterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary then releases a hormone that talks to the adrenal cortex. The adrenal cortex will then make more cortisol. When cortisol levels go up, then that will shut off the mechanism. And we see this the majority of the time. Positive feedback mechanism, 2 hormones. And for some reason, 2 processes. One hormone that's a positive feedback hormone that we'll be talking about is oxytocin. Oxytocin has to do with childbirth, and positive feedback, if you remember, doesn't fix a problem. It makes the problem worse until it's gone. But we'll talk about that when we talk about oxytocin. Okay, I'm going to stop here because now I'm going to be starting to talk about more specific things. So let's just stop and call that lecture 1. All about hormones and me letting my cat in.